Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and if you're in the here and now, you're welcome too. I have a special guest today, my good friend Michael Facciolo, who is a film producer in Vancouver, where I may be moving shortly. This is what they call God's country in Canada. I live in the part of Canada where nobody wants to visit. I live in Winnipeg, but Michael's here, and introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about your background while I change my virtual background here. I got the wrong background on again. So
Yeah,
tell me
for
a little
sure.
bit about Michael and your film background and who you are, and maybe your Hollywood stuff as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, first off, Grant, thanks for having me, and sincerest thanks for your great mentorship on this project. It's been a joy to work with you. And when it comes to the aviary groups and all this zeitgeist related to those 80s days in ufology, you're the man. So I feel very blessed to be able to come and talk to you for guidance. So yeah, my name is Michael Facciolo. Um, In terms of my film background, started off as an actor, been in many TV shows, movies, commercials. I was headhunted by a production company about 15 years into my acting career because I was told that I have a gift for sales and packaging projects together, and I wasn't necessarily getting I wasn't feeling fulfilled completely creatively as an actor. So I got into film producing, film development. I worked on film sales, going to different markets like the Cannes Film Festival with a company that produced a television show called The Kink in My Hair. From there, I was headhunted by a company based in Los Angeles called Jingle Punks, where I served as the the vice director of sales. Not too long, wasn't my bag. Ended up producing a documentary in Canada that took me quite a while. I worked with a great group of talented filmmakers on a project called Don't You Forget About Me, which is which was the search for 1980s recluse film director John Hughes. And that film ended up being exhibited all throughout Canada, the world. It still plays on CBC here in Canada as a part of the Christmas John Hughes special. Currently, I'm the vice president of a talent agency based in Los Angeles, California, called Impact Truth, where I'm fortunate to represent some of the great up and coming speakers, former celebrity athletes, celebrities in the nation. And I've just started about a year ago into production, but we started talking about, let's say, 3 years ago or so on what really my major passion is, which is extraterrestrials and UFOs. When I was very young, I was about 5 years old. I watched E.T. by Steven Spielberg, and I took that as a documentary. There was something in me at that time, even at a very young age, where I said, "This is real." So thus began my fascination with the cover up that has existed probably since the 20s, at least since Roswell in 1947. And the project that I'm working on right now is called the Aviary Ultimate Disclosure, which you've been very helpful to provide me with a lot of leads, a lot of resources, because you know all of those old members. And for those who don't know out there, the Aviary is a group that was started in the 80s and have been involved in several extraterrestrial and UFO related incidents since then. Does that work?
You're famous.
I don't know if
Some of
I'd
that
say
stuff I
that,
didn't know
but
about you. Yeah, you're pretty famous now. I mean, so we got together. You had your obsession. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your sighting, because that's usually when
sure.
you start going down the rabbit hole, you realize nobody comes into this sort of without something happening. And I don't know if you had childhood experiences or you had the one that you told me about, the scary one. So you can go wherever you want to go,
Sure.
because I think that's where we're looking at, that when you look at whether you're looking at Ron Pandolfi or Jim Semivan or Gary Nolan or any of these people, you suddenly realize, oh my goodness, these guys didn't come here by accident. Something happened to them, and that's what gets you down the rabbit hole and you can't come out. So talk a little bit about your sighting experience.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I have had other experiences. I'm an experiencer and very proud to be a UFO experiencer. It took me several years to kind of become comfortable with that. I really credit you for helping me, develop the internal confidence to come forward about my experience. So, yeah, as a child, I had a few very strange experiences that I can't explain, but um, I'm trained in Vedic meditation. I went to an ashram in the Bahamas where I learned from some incredible monks and rishis in terms of how to approach a state called samprajnata samadhi. And it seemed to come fairly easy to me. I was told that this is related to my past karma. Anyway, um, so I'm really also into the work of Dr. Stephen Greer. I really like Dr. Greer's work, especially when it comes to the consciousness aspect of it and making peaceful contact. So essentially his work, as I understand it, and I was using his app at the time, and this is not a plug for Dr. Greer, but it's absolutely the truth. Um, I wanted to make peaceful contact. I understand that consciousness plays a huge part of this phenomenon, the UFO and ET phenomenon. And, anybody you ask who's doing research on the field should acknowledge consciousness as a really important part of this. So basically, I started out on a journey to make peaceful contact using Dr. Greer's app and the meditation techniques that I had already gleaned. So I knew already how to get my brain into samadhi and go from there. So I started meditating, with the intent to make contact. I had just gotten back from Europe at the time, and I was on a very strange, this was back in about 2016, and I was on a very strange sleep schedule, getting up really, really early from the Europe transition. I had been living in Italy. And I practiced the technique over and over again for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. Nothing happened. The fifth day was very strange. So what happened on the fifth day was I just got up. I actually that night I hadn't even done the contact protocols. I was kind of, oh well, I gave it a try, and if contact is going to happen, then it'll happen. So I walked out. It was the only morning that I had forgotten my cell phone. The only morning. I never leave home without my cell phone. I'm walking up Butte Street in Vancouver, right on Pacific, where I lived at the time. And it was dark out, very dark. It was about 4 in the morning. I looked up above my head, and no word of a lie, there was a black floating cube, probably about 50 feet above my head. There were no discernible means of propulsion. There were no rotors. It was a black floating cube, and it was almost translucent color. And the more that I looked at this, the more it was changing color, not changing colors, changing shape almost. And it was floating like right over my head, about 50 feet as I walked up Butte Street. And I'm just staring at this thing. So I decided at the time, I said, this is like I was in shock as to what was happening. Even though I kind of was preparing myself for this, whatever, I had no idea what to expect, but I was certainly flabbergasted. So I started to do meditation techniques as I was looking at it. I was acknowledging it. I was projecting love and projecting positive intention for whatever this cube was. It seemed to follow me up the street for, up until we got to about almost at Davie Street. And then it went between two buildings and it was just gone. It was a very strange shape. It was about, no, it wasn't a strange shape. It was about the size of a Volkswagen, half the size of a Volkswagen. So kind of a strange size. You know what I mean? It didn't fit into anything that I could really identify. And it was a black cube. And from there on in, that gave me the internal strength to say, you know what, I'm going to pursue this because this is my passion, and I'm going to figure out what this was. Similar, I guess, maybe to your experience with Charlie Red Star. It seems to interact through consciousness.
Yeah, interesting. I apologize to the people watching. This is going to be Michael's show because I tried to fix the video and get it going. I haven't got a 14-year-old kid to fix it for me, so we're going to have to go without my video. But Michael's the key to this presentation today. The cube that you saw, it's almost like I always like to ask people the question in terms of their UFO sighting is, so what was it doing?
It was floating. it was floating over my head, almost as if it was following me. It followed the trajectory of Butte Street.
So do you
Right over my,
do you think it saw you? Do you think it knew you were, and do you think it was intended for you?
that's a great question. Yes, I think it was intended for me. And the more I look back with retrospect, I can say absolutely, I think it was for me. I mean, I was genuinely trying to make peaceful contact, and something happened that I can't explain. That's for sure.
Yeah.
One physical thing did happen to me after that. Um, I developed a small non-malignant tumor on my back, which I don't know if I've told you before, but it emerged after I had had that sighting.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's very similar. Mine was that I always point out when I had my sighting is that it was close enough that I didn't have to worry about what is this. I knew exactly what it was. It was not like a star in the sky where you're, oh, it's moving, it looks like a whatever, you know. And you hear the same thing with Bud Hopkins, who got involved 1975, the same year as I got involved. The thing's just hovering over the car, it's just sitting there, and it's like really not doing anything. It's just there, and it's like, or if you've ever followed Mark Sims was at a C5 event with Stephen Greer, if you've heard his story, and he's sitting there, and all of a sudden this object appears, and then I said, "What's it doing?" Well, it wasn't doing anything; it was just there. I said, "Anybody else see it?" No, I don't think so. I think I'm the only one that saw it. Did you think it saw you? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's when he goes back to the room and does the C5 protocol, and suddenly this being appears in the room, and then his whole story starts. So it's this whole idea where they come to you at this certain point, and there's no doubt in your mind. It's not like, was it a plane? Was it this? Was it? It's like they want you to be absolutely sure. Let's get past what this is and move on to the next step. So I would have that sort of right in terms of your sighting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There was some type of personal connection going on there. And I have an understanding of consciousness, and it made sense, and it was very strange because, like I said before, I didn't have my cell phone on me. And it was the only morning that I didn't have my cell phone on me. So almost like it felt like, okay, it's safe to come in and have this experience
Yeah.
with Michael, or whatever that was. I've done some research into other black cube UFO sightings, and if you refer to a lot of the stuff that's happening with the Tic Tac videos and the Go Fast videos and such, pilots have reported, it's online. They have reported black cube UFOs, but usually the black cube UFOs that they report have almost like a sphere around them, a clear sphere. And I didn't see any clear sphere at all. I saw simply a black floating cube, and it was very, very close.
Well, the cell phone makes sense. That's also I don't know if you knew that was interviewed by uh, Joe Wood, who was married to Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones.
Oh,
And
cool.
she tells her story, being on the Brazilian coast with her husband. He sees it first, and he's come out, look, and it's off the coast and on the ocean. She comes out and she's looking at it, and he says, "I got to get my glasses, I can't see." And he goes into the house, and that's when it starts. And there's another guy out of LA, runs a big LA group. Same thing. His wife is there, and they're on top. They got a rooftop pool, sort of on the roof, and they're sitting by the pool, and then she says, "Oh, I'll get some wine for us." She goes down to get the wine, and that's when these four objects or five objects fly right over his head, and you get this
Sure.
sort of thing where they make sure you don't have your cell phone. They make sure it's just you and them, and it's almost like you're in this sort of altered universe where they show up, and so they inspire you, and then you have an event after that, which is kind of a frightening event. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Are you referring to the military
Yeah,
experience that I
yeah.
had?
Because you
Yeah.
asked me about that, and I'm not sure where we're going to go with that, but
Yeah, let's talk. Absolutely.
you always hear this sort of thing, and then you start to wonder, does the military actually have that kind of technology? If you listen to I shared that Jim Semivan interview with you, and
Yeah,
here's Jim Semivan, who's the equivalent of a two-star general in the CIA, and he's saying, I can assure you they have no clue what's going on. I mean, they know UFOs exist, but beyond that, and it's sort of like this idea that for whatever reason, whether it's the phenomena or whether it's the military, and I keep doubting it's the military, that they have that kind of technology, that they come in. It's almost like if you saw the interview with James Lukatsky, where James Lukatsky says, "We have confirmed that he ran the DIA program. He said, we have confirmed that men in black actually exist. And you really, really, yeah. But the thing is, are they using reverse psychology? Are they scaring you away or are they drawing you in? So you have this sort of a black type experience where it's not the greatest experience. And the question is, who was it and what did it actually mean? Can you get into that? And it's kind of strange because we're in Canada. So we're
Yeah,
not much into military and intelligence and stuff like that. Everybody here, like, it's like, what are you talking about? It doesn't
right.
really happen. So you have this in Canada, this experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was in Canada. And so that experience started. And basically, when the WikiLeaks documents with Tom DeLonge and the generals came out, I mean, I was following that very, very closely. That wasn't up very long in terms of the actual correspondence, but um, the emails that were leaked on WikiLeaks that involved Tom DeLonge and the generals, General Neil McCasland and General Michael Carey from Space Command. It also had John Podesta. It had a link to Tom DeLonge's documentary with interview with John Podesta, and for a very brief time, that interview was up. And I actually watched the link that was up there, and it was taken down immediately. I'm sure I was one of the first people to go to that WikiLeaks on that second. So it started after that. I was after those WikiLeaks came out, I was convinced that there was going to be some type of formal disclosure. Um, based on the statue of the people that were being revolved here. So I started getting on the phone. I don't know if this is related, and I'm going to share my experience. I started getting on the phone to all my friends who are interested in this, and I said, "You guys, have you seen this? Are you seeing this? This is connected. Look, so and so. I mean, this is, I started name dropping the people that were involved in that WikiLeaks document pretty heavily. After that, shortly thereafter, a very strange experience came to me completely out of the blue. I was hired by a company. Um, I was hired by a company based in Victoria, British Columbia, and the owners of this company were all military background. And I was told that before they offered me the job. I didn't apply for this job. I didn't send a resume in for this job. I didn't even this came completely and thoroughly out of the blue. They offered me a job with a nice salary and everything at the time. And I'm going, okay, this is really strange. So they invited me to Victoria to go check it out and meet the team and everything. Whatever, I'll say it. So the company was called Chatter High. And I felt that that was a very strange name for a company, Chatter High, maybe for people who are chattering a little bit too much on about the UFO phenomenon and about bringing attention to this. Maybe at the time they weren't ready for that information. So really strange. Um, I get there, they take me shopping, they put me up in an Airbnb or whatever for the night before I'm supposed to go to the office. And the office is located on this military base in Victoria. So um, when I get to the office that day, it's a giant military hangar with nothing but a desk set up and a couple people behind the desk. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thinking, well, this doesn't feel right. Something feels really, really off about this, right? And so I'm fairly fearless. I was kind of putting two together that this may actually be, some type of, are they bringing me in to test me? They started setting me up at a computer and they said, we need you to go through all these tests, right? Personality test. And I'm thinking at that point in my mind, I'm going, okay, this is really, really, really strange. So I'm going through this comprehensive personality test in the giant hangar with one desk and two other female employees who were also former military. They were honest about their background. And at lunchtime, I started to poke the bear a little bit. I was asking the gentleman, so what's your experience with UFOs? Have you ever seen a UFO? And he went cold. He went really cold on me. And he said, I'm going to take you home tonight and, we'll talk. So he brings me back to the Airbnb. The Airbnb is based on this. It's like a sort of a chicken farm or something, right? And he walks me out back. He goes, let's talk. He walks me out back to the backyard of where this house was, and there was a chicken hen. And he goes, "Come with me, Michael. I want to show you something." So I walk with him, and he takes me over to the chicken coop. And he opens the chicken coop, and sure enough, there's chickens in there. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Is this And he said, "Yeah, that's where we put them when they squawk too much." And he left. And I was like, "Get me the hell out of here, man." The next day I ran, I took off. It was it. That was over. And I don't know what it was, but just something red flagged me about that experience. And that kind of really scared me. It scared me enough to stay away from this film project I'm doing for several years, to be honest with you. So
Which film project are you talking about?
the Aviary project I'm
Oh, okay,
working.
okay. But it
Yeah.
didn't work though. It didn't work. It's
No,
like this reverse psychology that Lakatsky's talking about is instead of pushing you away, you get sucked deeper into the rabbit hole and realizing what could possibly happen. And you start wondering like what's really going on? Why would they, do this kind of stuff? Because it simply didn't work.
No. And if their intention was to provoke me into wanting to do this more, they did a good job. But it was scary enough for me at the time. And I credit you for this, Grant, because on a personal level, really helped me get over my fear of, you know, Grant, are they going to kill me if I get into this? Like, you know what I mean? I know that this is maybe the top guarded secret in all of American military, ranking even higher than the H bomb, according to our Canadian brother and Dr.
Smith.
Wilbur Smith. Yeah.
Yeah, and so now that we can get sort of into what's going on. I mean, you're dealing with a pretty high level guy that I sort of helped you sort of get in contact with and give you background
Mhm.
on Ron Pandolfi. I mean, there was these stories that his first wife had told that Ron claimed that his job was more important than the president of the United States, and his friend Dan Smith said Ron can do whatever he wants. He's got that much power, and these kind of things. So, and then you get drawn into this. So let's go through that. I mean, you get
Sure.
the idea of the aviary, this sort of idea
Mhm.
that there's this group of government officials that came to Bill Moore back in the when he wrote the Roswell book. 7 days after he wrote the Roswell book, he got approached twice by phone. Said, "You're the only guy who knows what you're talking about. We'd like to help you. We're here from the government. We want this stuff put out." And he gives all these secret sources names, bird names, almost like Tom DeLonge had a dozen or 2 dozen people that he kept, that government people who were giving him material. So it famously became known as the Aviary, and I posted them back in the 1990s. I was either the first or second person to post them. I got them from a guy who was a former Iranian intelligence officer who was living in England. He spoke 7 languages or whatever. His father had connection to the president of the United States and stuff like that. He phoned me at 2 o'clock in the morning to tell me about this Aviary thing, and then I
Mhm.
tell you, and then you get involved in this. So let's go a little bit through the idea that you got to do this rather than doing some other movie. Why that? And are these the scary guys that people would think? You've had a lot of dealings with Ron Pandolfi. You've had a lot of dealings with a bunch of people who are high level people. Who do you see it the same way now, or do you see a role for yourself in terms of a mission that you've
Yeah.
got to do that maybe even they're helping you accomplish this mission?
Yeah, for sure. And maybe just to take a quick step back, I think it'd be important to say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but about 20 years ago, you were approached to do a project like this
I don't know
on
if it was
the
20
aviary.
years, but it was a few years back. And I put you in contact with that person, friend of Ron's, this idea that they sort of wanted it out. And it's this, and something I've talked to you about over and over again is this idea that I've always gotten is they want it out, but they don't want it out. They want somebody, I mean, maybe we can get into that. So they
Yeah,
choose
sure.
you, and it's sort of like they're going to give you the story, but it's not they're going to give you the top secret document. They're going to give you a document. They're going to tell you this stuff, and you're going to tell the story, but you got nothing to back it up on. You're sort of like fictional, and you're the storyteller, and that's what they need.
Yeah.
And that's what Tom DeLonge said when Tom went to the military. He said, "You guys can't get this out. You think you're putting the story out? Nobody's listening to you. I've got this power. I can get to the young people, stuff like that." And the guy says, "Well, maybe this will work." So that was my idea, and you can maybe agree or disagree. that
Do
they need
agree.
these film
Yeah.
producers. The government doesn't make films, so you've got to find people. And so you're a Canadian, and you can go through that whole issue about you being picked as a Canadian, this sort of offer and how this offer came, and how you
Yep.
got dragged into this story that's like goes back to 1980.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I was obviously first off fascinated with the zeitgeist of those days of the Bill Moore days, like you said. I consider Mr. Moore, one of the top-notch researchers in the field, and always very curious as to why he left so abruptly. Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have some advisors on this in the military intelligence community. Um, I took Tom DeLonge's approach because I really respected how he went about doing this, because I thought to myself, there are so many people out there right now, and this is not a criticism for those who are trying to move the disclosure football down the field at all. I respect each and every one of them and how they're doing it. But Tom DeLonge took a unique approach. So I took the similar approach and said, these are not our enemies. These military gentlemen and women are protecting a secret for reasons. And, I took Bill Moore's approach too, where I said, I'm going to get my nose dirty here and try and make friends with these people and try and not to be fake friends, but to come to try and understand the perspective of a Lockheed Martin, of a Boeing, of an EG&G, of a Motorola, of, you know, and also on the US intelligence side of things, like try and understand where they're coming from when it comes to protecting these secrets. I'm a civilian. What the heck do I know, or what can I really talk about that is of substance on this topic? I don't know, and I defy anybody to say that they know what's going on. But these secrets are kept and held within the military industrial complex. And I wanted to take it not as, you guys aren't our enemies. This is, you know what I mean? You're not my enemy. Help me get out what you need to get out. And if I can help further the football down the field here, then at least then I consider that a success. So yes. So essentially, I had began correspondence with somebody very, very, very high up in military intelligence, who I still am in contact with. Um, and I had requested an interview with another gentleman in military intelligence who I felt, could really add some light on this topic. So out of the blue, I got a phone call saying, "Hey, Michael, would you be willing to come to New Mexico to meet me? I have a document that I want you to read. And this document, I'm not allowed to post the document. I'm not allowed to do anything with that unless I negotiate it with this gentleman. But I was allowed to read the document and see for myself what was going on in terms of what the document shared about, the extraterrestrial presence on Earth. So I did. I put a small film crew together. Shout out to one of my co-producers, Reese Haynes, who helped me come along on this journey fearlessly. So I packed up. We went to New Mexico. I met with this gentleman. I asked this gentleman in advance if I could film the reading of the document, because I want the audience to know that this was not fake, that I was presented a document, be it true or false. So I read the document, and the one thing that I will share that was in the document, there were 12 events that the Aviary had been involved in. And very few others had passed on this, reading this document based on the contents. They said, this is not going to be able to fly. This information will.
Other companies, you're saying, other big
Other
companies.
other companies, exactly. There were a couple other companies that this
Yeah,
document had been offered to.
yeah.
But the contents, they were just like, we got to stay away from this. So that intrigued me even more. So um,
And
whoever's,
just to go back to one step,
yeah,
the guy that you're involved with actually plays the game, and on camera he
yeah,
comes in and he starts scanning the room, and so you get all
yeah.
this. I mean, that's why I said, like, whatever's happening, whatever you're involved with, is an amazing spy thriller story. I mean, whatever's going to take place here, they almost play the game with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and the information that I've been given, the one big thing about this document, I've had some time to put this together. There were some very strange things about this document. Number one, the contents of the document were most of the discussions that you and I have had about this over the past 2 years, right? I found that very strange. Is my phone tapped? Probably. Are people listening in? Probably.
Especially
So
the
that
one
was
thing we had, where you had the one name. We won't say what it is. It'll ruin the
mhm,
movie. But the one name, there's only 4 people who knew that name, and it's like, what? It's like they knew, and then it linked other people in. Like, this guy knows because he's the one that gave the guy the name, and it's like, wow, that just floored me when that had happened. It's sort of like that's why I
sure.
said, like, whatever happens, it's like a spy thriller. It's sort of like,
Yeah.
let's see where it goes. But okay, anyway, so continue.
Yeah, I'm
You're
trying to use
reading this.
creativity and storytelling to move this down the field, you know?
Yeah.
And there's going to be people that disagree with how my approach is, and that's fine, but it seems to be working. So the one big thing about this document that stood out to me is that the Aviary was and is still a special access program. I've gleaned knowledge now that the Aviary group has transitioned to a group of roughly 50 individuals. Pretty sure that this is transnational, and that there is one gentleman or lady, I'm not sure, but one person at the top of this food chain when it comes to managing the UFO secret, and that person is known as Mr. X. Part of this film is I would love to try and find out who Mr. X is.
Yeah. And we knew who it was in the past, but he's dead now, so it's going to be another person. And I remember, without getting into names, I mean, we tried to discuss who some of these people were because you were sort of offered sort of engagements with these people.
Yeah,
And some of the people that they were describing were not, as I told people, there's a thing that happened with the Soul Conference. You remember the Soul Conference? And then this
yeah.
colonel gets up, and then somebody
Colonel
put
Nell.
on Twitter, put up on Twitter, where's the generals? And it's like, and how many generals were sort of being discussed? And then you started having, without getting into names, you have the Aviary project on your website, and suddenly you start getting people that are watching the website, and they aren't
Yeah.
colonels. They're above the colonels.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The website statistics said that there were 3,000 special unidentified visitors to the website. So I've never seen that before when you're tracking back end statistics on a website. And then yeah, some strange generals started popping up on my people I know feed, and people that are, looking at the project. So
What
I
was the
hope I'm
deal that
not
they sort of
ruffling.
made with you? What was this deal about you being checked out? Can you go through that, or are you able to talk about that?
Yeah. Are you talking about an FBI
No, no, the
request
idea
stuff?
where you're applying, it's almost like you're applying for a job again. You're back in this Air Force base, taking tests where
Yeah.
they're not necessarily you've got the job. They need to check you out.
Yeah, exactly. There was a personality test that had to do with it seemed to be measured like the sociopathic tendencies. They tried to measure what's the word I'm looking for? Compassion and kindness tendencies, how I would deal with a certain situation. All of these kind of strange things that I thought had absolutely nothing to do with this job. Chatter high. I mean, anyway, whether I'm right or wrong about that, it was a really kind of strange experience in my life. And
But
yeah,
again, you're going through another sort of test where are you going to get the
I think
job? Are
so.
they going to continue on? And then it's sort of gone sideways, but it's still
Okay,
in the
I think,
works. And it's
yeah.
this whole idea of trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And when I first saw it, when you mentioned this to me, I said, "Oh, you're like the new Bill Moore." It's sort of like they went to Bill Moore, then they went to this Tim Cooper guy, and they're feeding him documents. Then they got Tom DeLonge, and then Tom DeLonge's gone, so now they need somebody else. And this Canadian thing, are you able to talk your speculation on the idea that you're a Canadian? Why would you use a Canadian? The same as you mentioned
Mhm.
before. Somebody else had offered this to me before, and that's the way that conversation started. Was I got a message from U.S. intelligence to talk to you, and I said, Come on. I mean, come on. You think I'm stupid? Like, come on, I'm a Canadian. Why would US intelligence say to talk to me? And that's where this whole thing started. And again, you're a Canadian being brought into this, maybe being brought into this project. Can you maybe speculate on
Sure.
that? What
Yeah.
that's all about?
Yeah. Well, when I was offered the document to read the document, um, the words were, "Oh, this might actually work. You're Canadian, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And then I kind of like, put it together that you can't conduct espionage on domestic soil. You have to, if there are rules within the states. I'm not sure if they apply to these special access programs or not, but there are rules that do not allow for domestic surveillance, right? So maybe because I'm Canadian, they can get around that as long as the information still comes out. And yeah, so to answer your other question, there's a carrot that's kind of being dangled in front of my face here, and hopefully this is going to transpire. I'm not sure exactly. I was supposed to meet this new working group very like in I think it was supposed to be this summer. Actually, I was supposed to go down. I put a pitch together, which you graciously helped me with, and put my PowerPoint together. um, and this group, should I say who might be spearheading this group, Grant?
It's up to you. I mean, or sort of save it for the movie, but it
Yeah,
is a major thing. I said the same thing. I said,
yeah,
if you actually get that meeting, I mean, then this is a real deal. I mean, this is like,
yeah.
doesn't matter what they tell you, whether it's right or wrong. It's like, why would a bunch of high level people like this go through this operation to get this out? Because it would be explosive, no matter what they're telling you.
Yeah. Well,
Even
I
the
was
idea that
told
you
that.
applied in New Mexico, it's because they did that to Bill Moore as well. I told these stories that Bill Moore was flown across the country. He goes into this hotel room. The guy walks in with an envelope and said, "You got 17 minutes." And he opens the envelope and it's got this document in it. And he says, "What do I do?" "You got 16 minutes." And the guy just, and so it quickly photocopy or films this document. And that's the kind of thing. It's almost like they want to play these spy games. And you got dragged into this. And I said, whatever's happening, this is just riveting stuff. I mean, it's like, what's happening now? Who's you're talking about people on the website and stuff like that, and you start to wonder, like, and it's almost like different from the initial thing where it was really fearful. This is kind of like it's like a game, and you start seeing these people as different types of people.
Absolutely, Grant. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a powerful senator that's behind or involved in this group as well. So we'll say that, and we can save it for the film depending on what happens. Um,
Yeah, so they're claiming they're in connection with the Senate because I think they described to you there's a bunch of operations going on. There's a
yeah,
bunch.
that's
You're not
right.
the only person, and that
Yeah,
they are
that's right.
connected to the Senate, correct?
Correct. This
Yeah.
group is connected to the Senate. And from my understanding, this group is also connected to the group of 50 managing this topic. I know for sure that there is a link of communication between this current aviary working group and the 50 or so that are managing this topic. There's a line of communication there. So I can only speculate that this larger group of um, you know, legacy program managers know what's going on. And I have my suspicion as to who I think is in charge of this
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so now you're busy. We're trying to get these people, and what we're finding sort of is that people sort of don't want to revisit it, or you figure they would play along or whatever. So we're trying to gather together the people who knew the past history of this and do
Exactly.
interviews. You've actually got a trip planned to do some interviews. You describe what you can about that, what you're planning to do there.
Well, yeah, and maybe before I kind of do that, I can talk about, the members of the aviary. We've got the Blue Jay, Dr. Kit Green,
Yeah,
who was former director of, as you call, the Weird Desk at the CIA. We
yeah,
have Bruce Maccabee, who was known as the Seagull, from my understanding,
yeah.
the Pelican. We have the Owl, Hal Puthoff, the Penguin, John Alexander, the Hawk, Ernie Kellerstrauss. Maybe I should stop and save it for the film.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, people can look up the names. So it's the old group, but now there's there's sort of a new group that this is
Yes.
where you've been sort of dangled this carrot that you may meet the new group. And in terms
Yes.
of what they want out or what the message is going to be. And I guess the main guy that we're dealing with before the other intelligence guy was Ron Pandolfi, and you got a pretty good reception from him. You built up a relationship with him, correct?
Yes, sir, I have. Yes, sir, I have. And he's been incredibly supportive. Um, he was actually the one that said, remember when all this stuff was going on and the congressional hearings were going on with
Yeah,
David Grush and
when Grush
Fravor
took
and
over, yeah.
everything? Yeah, yeah. I was on a vacation in Mexico when I started my correspondence. Um, and basically, he told me, and I told you, he said, this will never go through, and that the toothpaste is going to get stuffed right back in the bottle. And at the time, I thought, there's no way. There's no way. We're having congressional hearings here on the subject. The cat's out of the bag. Sure enough, 3 Republicans blocked this in the Senate, and that's it. They stuffed this thing right back in the toothpaste, and he's the only one to have told me that. So,
Yeah. And
mhm.
he's sort of given advice. I mean, in terms of
Yeah,
who to interview and stuff like that. So he's playing both sides of the coin. It's sort of like he's not cooperating, but then he said, "Oh, maybe you should talk to Dan Smith. Maybe you should talk to Kit Green. Maybe you should." And he's sort of throwing these names out as to where you should go, but sort of leave my name out of it, or no, not even doesn't even want his name left out of it. He's just sort of like,
no, now
he
it's
just
okay. Yeah, he's not, doesn't seem to be hiding anything. I value my correspondence with him tremendously. And, whether he's right or wrong, or whether or not he's managing this whole thing, who knows? But, um, you know, yeah, I've been very lucky. And I think that part of that luck has come from the approach that I took, which I do give credit to Tom DeLonge, because I loved, when I heard him say, these are not our enemies. Let's try and find some common ground here so they can hopefully level with us, just level with us. And, because I don't believe that this secret belongs to the military intelligence. I genuinely don't. I think that this secret is not a secret. It belongs to humanity. And hopefully that's going to come out. When you listen to guys like Jim Semivan talk about it as well, the same thing. He says that this doesn't belong to the government. The fact that we're not alone in the universe, and we've been visited, and not only that, we've been visited for a long time, and that these entities, multiple entities, or one entity has, altered our DNA, since, possibly 500,000 years ago. Um, I think people are ready for a true, at least an aspect of the truth, or true history of humanity. Like, big deal if extraterrestrials were involved in our genetic evolution. Who cares? Does that take away from the fact that we are humans, that we make music, that we are creative, that we love each other, that we hate each other? It doesn't take away, in my opinion, from the humanity. It's just a technicality, so
And so what's the timetable? Because you've got a lot of people, like they mentioned Kit Green
yeah.
and Dan Smith and a lot of names of interviews. So what's your timetable in terms of getting all this? And we have the problem also of money in terms of, it's a lot of money to put into to set this whole thing up. But I think it'll be a absolutely historic thing because everybody knows who the group is. They really don't know exactly who the names are and stuff like that. But it's always been this
Hmm.
story that's gone on for years and years and years of who are the guys that are actually know what's going on. And that was what my interest was when I got involved. Was I didn't know what was going on, but I figured somebody's got to know what's going on here. And that's what this whole thing was, this high level group of guys who have little bits and pieces of the story that you can maybe as a film producer put out there and fill in
Hmm.
some of the gaps and say that you actually talk to these people and they're not like guys who get coffee for the secretary at some office. These are high level
Yeah,
people that you're talking. In fact, I was really surprised
right.
how many very high level people that you had in terms of people that were
Thanks.
poking around. No, we don't know if they were involved, but they were poking around.
Yeah, there's a lot of high level people poking around at this project. And yeah, so the next steps are planning a West Coast road trip to interview as many of the original Aviary members as possible. There's a few of them that have passed away, like rest in peace, Ernie Keller Strauss. And There are those that have passed away, but I'd still be interested in interviewing their live relatives. One of the other things that I'm trying to do is successfully, it seems, bring on board some celebrities who have either had experiences with the phenomenon, who have not had an opportunity to talk about it. You can see more and more famous influencers coming out these days talking about they're having experiences and they've seen this and they've seen that. So this film is certainly a spy thriller first and foremost, but I think that by involving some larger names on this project, it's going to help move the football forward down the field, and it hopefully going to help other experiencers who've had experience with the phenomenon come forward, and yeah, so we're planning a West Coast road trip, and I'm very hopeful that you'll come along for the ride. And I'd like I said, half of these members are maybe actually, half are out east and half are out west. So we're going to try and do the California area road trip to try and lock down any of the current West Coast Aviary members that are still around, so I can start getting their perspective about what happened. And my dream interview is with Mr. Bill Moore. Mr. Moore, if you're out there and you're listening to this, please get in touch. It would be an honor to talk to you about this. I know you don't really talk too much about this, but I'm willing to honor anything that you have to say in terms of stipulations. You're the best, Mr. Moore. Hopefully you'll do an interview for my film project.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a while. But the other we mentioned, maybe we can get into this. We mentioned before is it was always like this speculation about where's the film going to go, how are you going to end it, and stuff like that. And then
Mhm.
it came down to this thing that you could have like 5 or 6 films by the time you do all the filming, and then at the end
Yeah,
decide where you're going to go because there was different aspects of do we do this angle, do you do this angle, and you're gathering film. You've got a lot of film already, but you could use this for all sorts of projects in terms of even the stuff with the Hollywood people, with the music people. I mean, I know people in Hollywood that have a connection to the UFO with music stuff. I mean, you could even do one whole thing on the Hollywood connection to UFOs in terms of your connections
absolutely.
there.
Absolutely. People like Kurt Russell have had,
Yeah.
he was a live witness to the Phoenix Lights when he was flying his plane. Absolutely, Grant. I couldn't agree with you more. Um, but I really want to put out something riveting, and I want to put out something really cool as a documentary, as a standalone first, with the focus on this group. Who are they? What were they trying to do? What were they read into? And where has this group gone now? Because this group has transitioned from my understanding. And I do want to say this as well, because I don't want to speak for this gentleman. I have confirmation that Mr. Pandolfi attended one meeting. That's the extent of my knowledge of his involvement in this aviary group. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but he hasn't seemed to lie to me before. So I don't want to position him as part of this group. So, you know, even though we think he is, it's possible that he did only attend one meeting.
Yeah. Well, then maybe we haven't really gotten into him. Like maybe describe for people who this guy is, because he is. I always make the joke. I mean, the main question in ufology is not what are UFOs, it's what's the hell is Ron Pandolfi doing? I mean, he's been around since '83 in the Reagan White House, and
Mm-hmm.
he's this elusive sort of character that you can contact him, and almost anybody can contact you and contact you back right away. And then you start this little bird game, like even where you'll get into this in the movie, the bird chatter, where they like to play this spy thing where they talk in rhymes and riddles, and you got to sort of put things together, and there's spy talk, and it's like just riveting. So maybe talk a little bit about who this Ron Pandolfi guy is and why he may be so important.
Yeah, sure. So my understanding is that he is the gentleman that may even still brief the president on UFO ET related issues. Um, I won't provide his location because that's not I don't think that's cool. But um, yeah, he seems to hold a very high up job, and I believe now he's a contractor. I don't know. He has a company that deals in environmental issues. poaching issues, stuff like that. And he's also heavily involved in drone technology, from my understanding. Nothing that I am not allowed to share. Um,
He's not sworn you to secrecy on anything, right? He's never told
no,
you to shut up and don't talk about this.
no,
He just
no,
plays this
he
weird little
hasn't.
game where you get a story and he said, yeah, I put that in the movie, and then he twists the story around as to,
Yeah.
or just say it was this. Instead, it was this person that made this person do something. It was this person that made the other person do something. Yeah, put that in the movie. That'd be a good idea. And so he's
Well, he
not
doesn't.
really. It's not the idea where he's threatening you, or it's more like a sort of a game where you're dealing with him, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. But he is actually in some ways pushing the project forward.
Very possibly. Very possibly. Um, what can I say in terms of that? He's been very generous with his response. He's very quick to respond to me, to answer my questions. Um, you know, he doesn't buy much into this aviary group, to be perfectly honest with you. That's his standpoint, that these guys, that are involved in this is
Loons, crooks, and worse, right? But then
loons.
he'll tell you, talk to this guy, talk to Dan Smith,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
talk to Kit Green,
absolutely.
talk
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Robert Collins. He'll put it
Yeah.
down, and then he'll tell you to talk to somebody. That's
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's helped open some doors for me, and he seems like a really, really nice guy. I gotta be honest with you. He seems like a really good guy. And if he is, one of the most powerful human beings on the planet, um, sure doesn't bring
even
that
just
ego to
you're
the table.
still hoping to maybe you can do your pitch to Ron about an interview, because he's the only interview he's ever got on camera is the one I got that I grabbed off their YouTube channel where he's talking about the portal.
Yeah, that would be a dream come true to have an interview with him. It really would. Um, I'm not holding my breath, but it would certainly be a dream interview. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nobody, he's like you always say, and we're going to use that quote in the film. It's the biggest question in ufology is not are there extraterrestrials, but what is Ron Pandolfi up to?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of interesting. And then there are some other people who now are sort of contacting him and playing the same sort of game, and it's almost like you wonder if he's got a job because he's must spend a lot of time talking to these various researchers who are talking to him. Very, very, very interesting. And that's why I said, like, it's not like you're going to solve the mystery, but
No,
you're gonna do this spy thing where people start shaking their heads and they go, I don't know what's going on, but this was real. This is just bizarre, especially that one. I guess we'd leave it for the film, but that one name that only four people knew. When you were reading the document and you gave that name, and I went, oh, instantly knew, like, Ron's involved in this. It's like no connection, but Ron was only one of four people who knew that name, and there's no way he could get in the document without him knowing. And it's like, so then you start really scratching your head, and that's I
yeah,
think is thrilling. Whatever you're the film guy, and you know how to weave it together. Did you talk about your former films, the films that you've done before, in terms of?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
that's the thing. You know how to do this. You're the storyteller. You're the artistic guy, and it appears that they think you can usefully move the ball down the field or whatever it is. Or
I'm
I
fired up. I'm
I'm just
fired up.
honored to actually be sort of on a part of this thing where I can sort of advise you in turn, because I was there when all this happened. I was there
I
with
know.
Bill Moore when all this happened. So I know who all the players are, and we brought in, now we're talking Ron Regier as is involved. I don't think he was
Yeah.
actually an Aviary guy, but he knew who all the people were. He was involved with Bill Moore at the time, and with this famous photograph of the alien, which you'll
Mhm.
probably tell in the movie,
I'd
where
like to
he
show that
talks
in the
about the
film.
guy that
Yeah.
dies. He draws the thing, and then he suddenly dies from this very rare cancer. And so
Oh,
Ron Regier has agreed to be, to give you background or to talk to you and stuff like that. We're starting to pull these guys out of the woodwork, and
yeah.
we're almost doing the same thing that Stan Friedman talked about. We're racing the Undertaker, because this story's going back a while now, and you got to get these
Yes.
guys like this
Yes.
Lee Graham, who I told you to talk to. As Ron Regier said, if he's still around, he's 90 years old. And you mentioned there's one guy on the Aviary who's 94, and you and I speculated who this might be. They
Yeah.
mentioned this
Yeah.
94-year-old guy. So a lot of this stuff is can you get it in time? Can you get these people before
Yeah.
the Undertaker gets them?
That's well said, Grant. And I would never have been It's been you that's really helped me in terms of giving me the background on this. Your work on this stuff has been impeccable over the years, and I'm very fortunate to have you help guide me on this. I really am, and I think this to me is one of the most exciting projects in ufology. All these researchers that contributed some way to moving the football down the UFO field. I don't want their names to get lost in the space and dust. I think it's important that that work is honored for the next generation of UFO researchers, filmmakers that want to dabble in this topic. We wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for guys like yourself and Bill Moore, Linda Moulton Howe as well. We just, Dr. Joseph Farrell. We wouldn't. So, you guys, your generation gets a big round of applause for my generation, because without you all, we would probably not even know about these groups that we're trying to get to the bottom of this super secret stuff.
Yeah, and hopefully you're successful in getting some, and then you maybe talk about that where you're hoping even on somebody who's backlit to
Yeah,
actually tell
yeah,
something
yeah,
rather than
yeah.
just repeating old stories and stuff like that. Actually get something on the record where they reveal something to the public as to what's actually going on.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can get this meeting with this group, the current working group, yeah, absolutely. I would love to respect and honor, and just do this in silhouette if it's needed. So, I still think not only does it still make for a great spy thriller, hopefully we can bring some new information that hasn't already been released to the UFO community, right?
Yeah, and
Hmm.
they are reaching out. So why do you think, speculate on why do you think they're reaching out? What is their intention? What's this all about? We know from our side what you're trying to
Hmm.
sort of accomplish, but what do you think they're trying to accomplish?
Disclosure. From my understanding, they're getting a little older, and the gentleman that I'm dealing with right now really doesn't think that this secret belongs to the government. It belongs to the people. When it comes to the technicalities of the secret, the technologies, the medical technologies, all these crazy breakthroughs that we're probably 1,000 years ahead right now than modern science says. Um, I think that this group wants disclosure. They want the public to know at least that we're not alone. I think that there is risk in sharing how these technologies, these 0 point technologies work. And there's risk there because if this got into the hands of nations of concern or terrorists or whatnot, we're not, these technologies will make the hydrogen bomb look like a firecracker. I mean, we're talking about technologies that have enough power to warp space-time and bring two pieces of space-time together. We're talking about technologies that allow for interdimensional travel. It's like I understand there are probably reasons, why they can't. And I would be nascent to think that part of the reason is also not money, right? The Lockheed Martin shares are up quite a bit. And, obviously I know that this is also about money, but if there's a small hope that those that are managing this secret, as you write, those who are managing the magic can give us something, a little bit, then, I think that these groups do want some type of disclosure. I do feel pretty confidently that each group that's involved in this, each potential operation that's involved, I've been told wants disclosure for different reasons, right? There's a media group that wants disclosure for their reasons. There's possibly a medical group that wants disclosure for their reasons, right? So all these groups, I'm pretty sure have slightly different agendas, but at the core of the agenda, I think that they don't believe that this is a secret that should be kept from humanity anymore.
Um, let's maybe pinpoint, if someone were to watch this, you're going to get a lot of people watching this, and you may get someone who may be part of this, a whistleblower or whatever. How do they contact you? If somebody decides that they want to get involved, or they want to be part of this, or they want to advise you or whatever,
Mhm. Hmm.
How do they contact Michael?
Thanks, Grant. Yeah, that's a great question. Just go to aviarymovie.com and my email information is listed right there. You can go, if you're a whistleblower or if you're somebody involved that wants to talk, let me know. I'm happy to discuss, and also anybody that's interested in potentially coming on board financially to help the project as well. I'm all ears to that. It looks like I may have the interest in the film may have already just brought further funding, so I'm really excited about that. Um, but yeah, aviarymovie.com.
Beautiful. Quite unrelated question.
Sure.
As you probably know, the Canadian science advisor to the Prime Minister is about to come out with a UFO documentary. Have you reached out to them to try to document this, what they're doing in terms of Larry Maguire, the MP, or Mona Nemers, the science advisor, to maybe grab that at the same time and document that?
That's a great idea, Grant. I would love to do that. I know Larry Maguire has voiced his thoughts on the UAP issue. My understanding, actually, I've been told by one of my sources, is that the plane, the UFO that they knocked out of the sky, not the Alaska one, but there was one in Canada that was knocked out of the sky. Um, we didn't hear anything about that. They shoved that under the carpet so deep you can't find it, right? Whatever happened to that? That would be a great question for Larry Maguire or for whoever's advising Premier Trudeau, or what's
Yeah,
his name? Yeah, Trudeau.
Prime Minister, yeah.
Prime Minister Trudeau.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's got a
Well,
28% approval rating. I forgot his title.
but he's got two parties. He's got the NDP backing him, so he's still going to probably be safe for a while. But I mean, at least he's done it. I mean, you can say what you want, but I mean, his science advisor is moved. I can
Yeah,
give you the name of the Maguire's aide and maybe reach out to them and say, you'd like to document this move when the prime minister's office puts out this report, because it should be out any week now. And in terms of grabbing it, I don't think there's anybody trying to record this for history. I mean, that would be a short, easy trip where you could just, you and your film guy just fly by and do a bunch of
yeah,
interviews in Ottawa and talk to the science advisor and put it on film and get
it's a
that, because
great idea.
it needs to be
It's
happening at
a
the same time. And they have the contacts to Gresh. What conversations did you have with Gresh? What did he tell the Canadians? It's kind of
mhm.
it's a side issue, but again, you have so much stuff on your plate in terms of all the different people, and then you realize, do we go down this road? Do we do the strictly the aviary thing, or do you do the new group, or do you tell the old
Yeah.
story, the new story? There's just so many things. It's sort of like, that's where my advice was, to try to get as much filming as you can. If anybody wants to sit down, you film them for 3 or 4 hours, get all the film, and then decide, where we're going to go
Absolutely.
with this thing, because it's just so much material that you've got in terms of
Hmm.
people who are involved in all this kind of stuff. And
Yep.
kudos to you for doing it, because that's the thing, is that's what is missing, is we have not that many. In fact, when I started, there was maybe one UFO documentary a year on TV or something like that. Now there's people doing it, but that's what you need, is you need people like you who can get to the general public who are watching TV and who are watching Netflix and stuff like that. Whereas how many people can I reach on my Facebook and Twitter? Nothing like what you can. I think they realize you got your group is the important group that are getting that message out, and that's why I think they spend so much time in Hollywood trying to rub shoulders with people who are doing CIA movies to try to get them going in the right direction and to
Hmm.
help the guy. And in terms, you tell the good story, and it's all this PR stuff that has to be part of running a government and running operations, that you get the people who have very powerful voices in Hollywood and in the film industry to be on your side and not be doing documentaries against you.
Couldn't agree more. And yeah, like you said, I mean, I know as an artist, as a filmmaker, it's not my first rodeo. So I know that oftentimes, this is one of the reasons I love documentary filmmaking, is that the film finds itself in the editing room. And right, you put that story together as it goes, and you have to be open to, let's go this way, let's go meet the group. Okay, that's not happening yet. Then let's go find the aviary guys. And oh my God, maybe we need to go find Bill Moore. And then who the heck is Mr. X? Right. So we shape all of that. We shape all of that as it goes. There's no rhyme or reason, right? People are coming out of the woodwork. They're wanting to talk, and you kind of like you go with the flow.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Maybe sort of to close, maybe you could talk
Sure.
about the one opening, the one of the openings that you thought of is this Bill Moore, the important, very important speech that Bill Moore made in 1989, and now we find out that Ron Ruggiero filmed this. He was
Yeah.
in filming this very famous speech that Bill Moore made in 1989 in Las Vegas. Maybe sort of paraphrase what he said, which is, I think you're doing the same sort of thing. This idea, you either play the game or you don't play the game. If you're going to play the game, you play the game.
Yeah, for sure. So, um, why don't I just read
Yeah.
a certain segment of what Bill Moore said at that last MUFON convention?
And this is when he quits. He pulls out. He says, you guys have been had, and I was on the inside, and I'm out of here. And he basically leaves, and he doesn't come back. He does a couple of interviews, but basically leaves. So read what he said in 1989 to a very angry audience when he delivered this presentation.
Sure, absolutely. So Bill Moore leaves the MUFON podium, and his words are, knowing what's going on is simply not enough. The real question is why. It seemed to me at the time that I was in a rather unique position. There I was, my foot literally in the door of a secret counterintelligence game, every appearance of being somehow directly connected to a high-level government UFO project. And by judging by the positions of the people that I knew to be directly involved with it, definitely had something to do with national security. There was no way I was going to allow the opportunity to pass me by without learning something about what was going on. Many ufologists have run up against disinformation over the years. Virtually all of them viewed it as a negative process, and they backed away from it, either in anger or disgust, as soon as they discovered what they were dealing with. Even today, the UFO community unanimously considers anyone known or suspected in dealing in disinformation to be one of the bad guys, someone to be shunned or avoided at all cost, and certainly never to be believed. I, on the other hand, determined to take a different tact. I would play the disinformation game, get my hands dirty, just often enough to leave those directing the process into believing what I was doing was exactly what they wanted me to do. And all the while, continue to bury my way into the matrix as to learn as much as possible about who was directing it and why.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it'll be riveting if you can get that clip in there with him actually reading this. It's very
Oh,
dramatic.
wow. I just got chills when you said that. If we could
Yeah,
actually get Bill Moore to read that, I mean, that would, wow.
yeah.
Maybe he should narrate this. I mean, I'm open to all different kind of things. I just know that Mr. Moore, if you're out there, my intentions are sincere, they're pure, and I have nothing but honor for and respect for the work you've done in ufology. Truly, if you couldn't get to the bottom of this, Mr. Moore, I'm not going to be able to get to the bottom of this. I'm just trying to move the football down the field.
Beautiful. Okay, I guess we'll leave it at that. And unless you've got something you want to add in terms of what you think is important here, and we'll do another thing as this project unfolds. We've been working on
Mhm.
this, what, a couple of years? And I'm going to
Yeah.
Vancouver, so we'll be a little bit closer in terms of being able to, talk and see where things are going and that sort of stuff. But I think
Mhm.
it's been a couple of years we've been working on this, right?
Yeah, for sure. And a nice year of actually, trying to put the pieces together. So, I mean, it was difficult to do during the pandemic. Nobody was, we were all locked up, and it wasn't really, I didn't want to shoot these interviews on Zoom. I wanted to be able to go in person and bring some creativity to the live on-site interviews. And, shout out quickly to you and Contact at Sea. I know you're going to do a kick butt job out there, and I'm excited to hear how it goes. And anybody who's going to Contact at Sea, make sure you check out Grant's stuff. Grant's going to be showing the teaser trailer for this film. It's going to be that. It's the only place I'm going to show this. And yeah, Thanks for everything you do, Grant, and all your
Beautiful.
contributions to ufology.
Beautiful. And maybe last time, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, give your sites for people, because people are on different sites, and some people do Facebook, some do Twitter, for
Yeah,
contact information and how they can follow the project.
sure. Aviarymovie.com is the best way to go about doing this. I am putting this out on my Facebook. Um, and believe it or not, I don't have a Twitter. I mean, that platform, I don't know, I get a little weirded out by the Ed Snowden factor of that platform, but um, but yeah, the best way is go check out the website, write me. We'll probably post some teaser stuff as well. And yeah, that's the best way.
Beautiful. And
The
and
actually
and
on my public Facebook, I will be putting updates. So people can check it out. Even if you're not my friend on Facebook, you can still check out the updates. I make them public.
beautiful. Thank you for what you do. I mean, this is it's an exciting
Oh, yeah.
project to be involved in. I'm sort
Yeah.
of on the inside of. I've seen a lot of these happen, and it's sort of like I get to work with a new Tom DeLonge here.
Oh, that's very nice of you, Grant. And I am
Beautiful.
so thrilled that you're the best, buddy.
Okay.
Talk soon.